France 24's Mark Perlman is there already. He joins us now live from Invalides. Mark, first of all, tell us a bit more about this ceremony today that will pay tribute to these two young French commandos who lost their lives.
Yes, Jeannie, it is a very solemn ceremony taking place today here at the Invalides in the center of Paris. It is the third time Emmanuel Macron will pay tribute to soldiers who have fallen. The first one was back in June of 2017. A soldier by the name of Albéric Rivetta was killed in an operation in Mali, and then in March of 2018, Arnaud Beltrame, who was killed during a terrorist attack in southern France, where he exchanged his life, if you will, against a hostage in a supermarket in Trèbes in southern France. There have been other national tributes for writers, singers, but this is obviously a very solemn moment. There's a tremendous emotion in France because of this notion that those two men sacrificed their lives to rescue hostages, two French hostages, as well as a South Korean and an American hostage. And it was indeed a deadly, secretive operation in the night of May 8th to May 9th in Burkina Faso.
Now, Mark, the deaths of these two young men has been made even more tragic for some, as there has been quite a bit of controversy, a lot of criticism over the risks that were taken by the French tourists that they freed who were taken hostage.
Yes, and controversy actually prompted by the government as well, especially the Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian, who essentially told the press that they had really been careless. However, there was some correction made afterwards, because they were said to be in a so-called red zone where people are really prevented, or at least told not to go, absolutely not to go. Actually, the park where they were kidnapped in Benin was not in such a red zone. It was in an area where people were told that for their safety they shouldn't go, but they were not barred from going. So this was a bit overblown, and actually, even though clearly there is some resentment towards them, and people said they should have been more careful, even the head of the military said, you know, this is our job. We would do it again and again if it would happen. So clearly there was a willingness to calm things down. Emmanuel Macron went to greet the hostages when they came back to France. It was a very discreet ceremony, and today, by contrast, the president will deliver a speech, a eulogy, probably honoring the man with all the respect the nation will grant them.
Right, these two young soldiers who are going to be posthumously receiving the Legion of Honor. Mark, tell us a bit more about this elite commando troop that these soldiers were in the Sahel region of Africa.
Well, they're the equivalent of the U.S. Navy SEALs, if you want, the Secret Special Operations Unit, and it's part of the Navy, and those troops are often stationed in areas that are not identified, but from what we could gather, they were probably already in the region, presumably in Burkina Faso. The intervention was decided very quickly because those two tourists were taken hostage after their guide from Benin was killed, actually, by the kidnappers. And the assumption was that they were they had crossed the border into Burkina Faso, and they were probably headed for Mali in the hands of jihadist groups that have taken hostages in the past. So there was a decision to really send those elite troops to make those very difficult military interventions. Some interventions have happened in the past, not so much in recent years, because some of the operations went awry. Some of the hostages in the past were killed in the Sahel region. This didn't happen this time. However, two soldiers were killed in the line of duty, and those two young men will be honored by their comrades, by their families, but also by the president. And we can assume there'll be a number of former presidents, former prime ministers, and the government.
Mark, thanks so much for that. That's France 24's Mark Perlman there. We were talking about that ceremony that's going to be taking place shortly at the Invalides in Paris, a ceremony that we'll be carrying live for you here on France